Ryland, it was another great session on the consultative mindset. So thank you for joining us tonight. It is always really helpful, the insight that you bring. Uh, we had a really good Q&A session, and this time actually you answered all of the questions, but then we went back through chat and
Never
we
happens.
realized I know
Never happens.
we realized that there were some other really good conversations that were going on in the chat. So we wanted to use this time to just answer a couple of those. The first one I thought was pretty interesting. So the question started off as this: does a BA need to know SQL? Do they need to be able to read code in order to do this work? But I'll take that a step further, because I think probably where this person is going is, what tools differentiate the junior business analysis professional from the senior?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a good way that question elaborated a little bit too. And it is, I just love, tonight was a good session. We never get to all those questions. So that was really cool that we could do that tonight. I always feel like we're leaving so much unanswered and people want to know, inquiring minds. So, okay, so the question, do they need to know SQL? And so let's just address that one for a second straight on. SQL is super helpful for any software BA because databases underlie so much of what we do. At least if you're in industry, you know, you're dealing with data. If you're working at like a game app developer thing that's strictly on a phone, maybe the database isn't so critical. But otherwise, yeah, you really need to know data for almost any industry. How much is in alignment with how specialized you are. And I think this is going to go to some of the other tools. Like me, I've been a database programmer, I've been a DBA and a designer. I didn't have to do those things for very long in my career, but I loved when I got to do them, so I was kind of passionate about it. Yeah, when I'm hiring a BA, I like to see SQL as a skill because I want to know they can dive into the data and that they understand the basics of relational databases, because it's going to do so much around the work that they do. So I guess I'm just saying, folks, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, you should have at least a passing familiarity with how databases work, the difference between, you know, what a table is, what a column is, and why relational databases work the way they do in the simplicity of parent and child relationships. And it'd be good if you could do some very simple queries. I don't expect a lot, but I expect you to be able to do a few simple select statements without joined tables, for those of you that are really wondering. That would be like, I would call that the minimum that I'd like to see. I'm not saying I would exclude someone from a job because of it, but I am saying I would really expect to see it for anybody who I want to be more of a generalist in software. And then let's talk about the difference between junior and senior for like in general. And I kind of like this analogy that you and I have thrown around a few times of, you know, it's not the tool, it's the hand that uses it. So what I expect to see from somebody who's growing, or if I'm hiring somebody or whatever, is a breadth and depth of skills and tools, knowledge of tools in alignment with their seniority. If you're a junior BA, you should probably be able to do process diagrams, maybe a data flow kind of diagram. I'd love to see an entity relationship kind of diagram, but those are not common to see in junior BAs unless you happen to be a data-centric person. You know, I'd like to be able to expect you to be able to look at a wireframe and understand what it means if we're doing software. You know, some things like that. Stakeholder analysis, stakeholder mapping, things like that. You know, those are the tools I want to see it there. And as you go up, I want to see business rules analysis. I want to see entity relationship modeling. I'd like to see decision tables. I'd like to see facilitation skills is a big set of tools I really need to see these days. You know, and of course, other skills like presenting to leadership. We talked about this on the session because it's so part of being a skilled consultant is, or even the consultative mindset in a company, right? It doesn't have to be just about outside. Inside, you talk to leaders as much. The ability to distill down a lot of complicated stuff for easy consumption is a skill. So all of those things I just expect to see in proportion to the person's seniority. And I feel like that's it. So it's not that, but I guess I expect broader and deeper skill sets and good examples of using them the more senior someone is. Does that make sense for you too?
Yeah, it does. It's you have used the analogy of you know, putting some kind of a tool in the hands of, you know, somebody that just does kind of weekend work around the house versus a master carpenter, right?
Yeah.
It's really the same, it's using the same tool, but it is completely different set of outcomes. And that, I think, is what distinguishes your tool use based on whether you're new to the profession or you've been doing this a little while. And that really, that latter, are you a craftsman in using whatever that tool is? I also think that the more experience that you get as a business analyst professional, you also find tools that you like. And they are your go-to tools. I know context diagrams are an example of that for you.
Yes.
And you can figure out ways, sometimes very creative ways, to use those to make your point. And I think that's an important differentiator.
Yeah. Yeah. Something it made me think of, because a lot of folks who ask these questions are talking about it in terms of, frankly, they're either, they're kind of looking in terms of, how do I get hired? What am I going to need to do in a job interview? Okay. Or they want to be seen as a person who is promotable inside their company. And I don't think either of those is unreasonable, by the way. Those are very valid reasons for this. So let me give you this. I'm kind of offering this to those of you who might be listening about this at this point, and you say, hey, yeah, that's me. Picture the next behavioral question you get at a job interview is something like this. Tell me about a time you used a BA technique and it really made a difference that you couldn't have made without the use of that technique. You're going to need to be able to show the tool you used, how you used it, and what difference it made, right? That's the kind of thing you want to picture here. If you don't have a few of those that you could come up with after thinking about it for a few minutes, not in an interview, but ahead of an interview, then you need to work on this. This isn't a strength for you yet. And you might be doing it, and kind of like I suggested in the session today, or tonight, because it's local time, it's tonight here, was, if you can't picture any of those, maybe ask people you trust for feedback about it. Hey, is there ever a time I used like a BA thing in a room and you were surprised at it? Or your boss maybe, for feedback about that. And don't make it about like your annual review you need this for. You're just trying to get feedback on like, oh, well, that's what stood out to me, and that'll let you get some useful feedback to maybe shape this for your future. It's just a thought.
Also, that's a great interview question. So snag that if you do BA interviews and you're listening. That's a great question.
Yeah, one on that, and you were kind of saying it. I definitely do ask that to people. Like, what's your go-to techniques? I'll ask that in an interview because I want to know, especially if they have an IIBA certification, because now I know they should know what they're talking about. Like, what's your favorite stakeholder elicitation technique? And I'll just, now I want to know. Or tell me about a time when you had to model a process that was complicated. How did you adapt a process model to do the thing you need? Like, that's more of a senior question. Like, how do you take the tool and go beyond it, right? What did you do from a regular process diagram? And then what did you layer in to make it special? Show me a time you did. You're telling me you're senior. Show me something you did there. And I don't mean it too challengingly, but I expect that when I see it. So when someone says it, so, but hey, I got to challenge you in an interview or it's too easy. Should we take, why don't we tackle our other question?
Yes, let's do that one. Okay, so the next question, when we've done this before, even when I've been part of any of your master classes, there is always a lot of questions about the business analysis plan. That seems new to some folks. It seems like something that they may not always do, but you really suggest that when you're a more senior analyst, you really need to have an approach. So here's the question. Crap, what's the question? Well, why? This is the part that we're cutting out.
Real. No, we're not cutting this. This is real. We are being real with people. They can see us giggle and laugh. We've been talking on this thing now for almost.
Oh, golly.
It's okay. I got it if you want. It's all
so
cool.
Yeah. So why should they do one? But the interesting question, actually, it was a comment that somebody mentioned that it was a little bit of CYA for their project manager, and that's a really great reason to do these.
Yeah, it is. And even if it's not, so they're right. I want to point this out. This wasn't a thing I covered tonight, so I was really glad that somebody else pointed it out. We're talking about analysis planning, And, this is my BA approach. And if you go to your BA BOC and you think about your process activities or areas, again, it's been a while since I did my cert, so I forgot some of the details, but plan business analysis activities is one of them. And it's planning, and I think it's BAPM, business analysis, planning and monitoring is the area, right? But the key one is plan business analysis activities. You are documenting how you intend to attack the work. And I guess, if we're going to riff on this a little bit, the thing I was thinking is, there's that joke that every BA wants to grow up to be a PM someday, and they're just we're the larval form of project managers, which is so cute. I mean, that's not it. We love you, but we don't want to be you.
Yeah.
Okay. And you love us and you don't want to be us, right? Because that's how a lot of the relationship is. But I really, really sincerely, wow, it's great right behind me. See that shelving thing? It's kind of a yin and a yang. I see the BA and the PM spaces as a lot like this, because if you look at the BA space, you have to be able to do enough project management that you can manage your BA activities, right? You can plan and execute a business analysis plan. And in your project management work, on the other side, you have to have enough analysis thinking to be able to consider, to what am I even making a plan? Why am I making a plan? What needs to be in the plan? So there really is an appropriate yin and a yang of these two skill sets. So that said, one of the things that somebody was commenting is, as you said about the CYA, project managers just want to get the work done, right? Their key thing is to drive forward, check boxes, show progress on the Gantt chart, time spent equals value received, however you think of it. And BAs, we hear these questions all the time, right? Somebody will come to you on the PM because their Gantt chart looks like whatever, and they had to cut some room, and they said, well, listen, you've only got 2 weeks to get requirements. And you say, no, that's not going to work. And they say, well, that's all you got. And the lousy ones just drop it on your desk and walk away, metaphorically. And the others say, well, why not? Show me. So your plan allows you to show them. So hypothetically, it might look like this, right? Well, we've said this, and this are the important things. The important things about those mean I have to have these stakeholders. And everybody on the call, if you're listening, you can quote me on this. This is a useful quote. Project Management Institute will tell you that the top reason a project fails is a missed requirement. IIBA will tell you that the main reason you miss a requirement is you miss a stakeholder. Okay? Quote me on that if you want to. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Haven't looked it up in a while, but it was when I looked at it last. So what's going on here? Well, to get that thing done, I need these stakeholders to give me their input. And 3 of the key ones are on vacation until next Wednesday. So I don't have any chance to interview them, which means we will simply have missed requirements from 3 key important people. And how do you think they're going to feel about that? They're going to make us roll backwards. So I can't get those requirements in the next 2 weeks, because meeting with them on day X still means I need to do analysis work to have requirements from it, right? I meet with them, I refine, I check on what I have to do with them, and then I produce my documentation that we can all agree on. And depending on your documentation, that could take some time or it could be quick. Depends on what you're dealing with. So that's where you can come back and say, however, I have 4 different domains I got to work on. These guys aren't available right now. I'm going to work with them next week. These others are available right now, so I'm going to work with them. I'm not wasting any time, but we're not going to get any of that time more efficiently back until a little later, unless we change the whole project plan around. What do you think, project manager? How should we approach? Do you agree, disagree, feel differently with, do you see something I haven't seen? Maybe they'll offer you something really useful. Oh yeah, Lawrence is on vacation, but John, who works with him really closely and knows everything about it, he's available right now. See if you could use that to get a jump start. Fantastic, I'll do that. I'm not promising you it's going to save me 2 weeks, but I am telling you I'll try. John may tell me, I really don't know about this specific area. You got to see Lawrence about. So just making that up as an example, but that shows you, you can now say to your project manager, here is the work I must do to get my analysis done. Here are the people I need, the processes I'm going to execute, the outcomes I'm going to create, the documents I'm going to do. Here's the document review process. If you're waterfall, you've got review processes, right? If you're agile, it can be a little smaller, or you can break it up and spread it out. So you're also showing how each of the things you're going to do eliminates a project risk. The first risk is doing a project without any requirements is a huge risk, right? So we know we got to have requirements. the question is, could you save time, or what else is going on, right? Could you accelerate the project timeline and eliminate some of the crazy from this, right? By doing some other risk area with your requirements work while you're waiting on other pieces yet to be able to be done. So the challenge there, if you're dealing with the CYA concept again, is you can show, here is what each of the things I'm going to do addresses in terms of retired risk for the engagement or the project or whatever you're dealing with. If they're willing to say, and the product owner or your project sponsor or whoever the customer is willing to accept the risks that are aligned with not doing those pieces of work, then maybe you could avoid those pieces of work or defer them to some other way. But you want to make sure you have the email saying, yeah, I instructed you to not bother about, I made the decision that we would begin construction in absence of those requirements and risks being retired. Because if you've pointed it out, they have every right to say, you know, you're going past the point of value, maybe we shouldn't do that, or and we can start with that. It's only a 2% chance of it, and nobody's going to die if we get it wrong. They might even be right. That's fine. If you can accept risks of rework, then the risk may be severe, but the consequence of the risk is not. So those are all things to work out. The end of the point here, again, the so what, which if you listen to the presentation, I'd have told you do the so what first. The so what of this is, by doing the analysis plan, you surface all of these things up for your project manager, your project sponsor or product owner, or whoever the key stakeholders are, to buy in and agree or disagree with you. And then at least you aren't being looked at as that person who needed, well, the BA needed 4 weeks because they were slow, right? We've all been there because someone doesn't understand what it takes to do the work, you know? And I feel like showing them that gets you more good, positive relationship. And as we talked about trusted advisor and trust equation, it shows them what goes into the work you're doing. And then you can be accountable to it and plan for it. I'll make that last point, but that's the main reason, okay? Again, given that you can now show, I'm gonna give you one other thing on the whole project manager thing, which, Susan, I know we've been there. I hope this is okay to go one more minute on this. Have you ever been in that spot, and I know you have, where your PM says, well, what % are you done with your requirements? And this is a really hard question for us because, you know, if I've got 10 stakeholders to interview, we all know my requirements can still change until I've gotten through all of them. Any one of them could cause me to be in conflict with somebody earlier, or any number of things could come up. So it's not really a percentage complete that way. It doesn't quite work that way. But at least if let's say I've got those 10 stakeholders, what can I now report? I have interviewed 8 of the 10 stakeholders. I have the remaining 2 next week, and I have gotten, and of the other 8 that I was just referring to, I have reviewed my notes with them, and they have said I have captured their requirements correctly so far. Doesn't mean I'm done, it just means they're correct. Somebody else disagrees, I might have to go back and reconcile things. I will have the rest of that done by the end of next week, and then I will be interview complete. I will have my documents prepared. You know, unless somebody throws major stuff at me that I have no reason to expect yet, I should be done with my documents about another 3 days later because I've done what I could with what I've got. And then I will be ready for review and final approval amongst these stakeholders on Friday the 17th or something like that. You can now report more concrete things versus % complete, which doesn't tell anybody anything. So I feel like that's kind of the thing you can do here. You now have an itemized list of activities, level of effort, when you think you can accomplish them, and what you're doing when, that you can share with the relevant people who care and get their buy-in and participation. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. It's both about risk, planning, shows what work you got to do, and gets the buy-in of all the relevant people. And with that, I'm going to stop there.
Well, I was going to add to that some of the comments in the chat. There was some discussion around, you know, the BAs on my team, I know that they're doing this plan in their head, but I can't get them to write it down. And, you know, that they're doing it is good. I don't think it has to be a template. It doesn't have to be anything formal. Sometimes it can just be putting some things on paper, even just to keep yourself straight about what has to be done. But my takeaway from this is really you want to spend some time on putting a BA plan together when you know that you're in some kind of a time crunch,
especially.
or when there's a lot of complexity to what it is that you're going to do, because showing your math, as they say, can be really helpful for you, and it can be a helpful way to communicate exactly what you've got to do. And then we can talk about facts on paper instead of hypotheticals.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's part of that picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Because you're kind of showing them probably a graphic plan, or at least a list, a table of something like, here's what I got to do. You know, a table is a way of showing information in space. Position helps with it, so it's kind of a picture. Yeah, people can absorb that a lot easier than 2,000 words of text. So yeah, putting it on paper, drawing a little picture, showing what it helps with. I agree with you completely. Do that anytime you can.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Was
I
there
think we
anything
got
else? I think we're there. All right, we're going to call it a night. Thank you all for watching the video. Appreciate it. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.